Todd Monken did not walk into Cleveland Browns headquarters looking to feel things out. He arrived with a clear structure, defined expectations, and an immediate willingness to make difficult decisions that previous coaching staffs consistently delayed or avoided. The moment Monken took over, the organizational temperature changed. Players, staff, and observers around the facility noticed it quickly. This was not a regime that would let uncomfortable situations drag on for the sake of avoiding conflict. And within days of settling in, Monken delivered exactly the kind of direct, unambiguous message that set the tone for everything that follows in Cleveland this season. The bombshell landed in a face-to-face meeting between Todd Monken and Dillon Gabriel. No intermediary. No vague front office language. No carefully worded press statement designed to keep all options open. Monken went directly to Gabriel and told him, plainly, that he was not part of the plans moving forward. In the NFL, that kind of directness is genuinely rare. Coaches across the league have a long history of allowing quarterback competitions to stretch on indefinitely, issuing non-committal statements about evaluating the roster while leaving players in professional limbo for months. Monken skipped every step of that process. He looked a player in the eye and delivered the honest truth, and that decision said as much about his leadership philosophy as anything else he could have done in his first weeks on the job. To understand why this moment matters, you need to understand what kind of coach Todd Monken actually is. His reputation in the NFL and college football is built on precision, not just in scheme design, but in how he builds and manages a quarterback room. He demands structure, command, and an ability to perform when the game is on the line. Monken doesn't surround himself with players who show flashes. He builds systems around quarterbacks who deliver consistently, make correct reads under pressure, and carry themselves with accountability outside of the game itself. When he accepted the head coaching position in Cleveland, it was understood immediately that a full evaluation of the roster was coming, not just talent evaluation, but a cultural evaluation. Every player in that building was being assessed not only on what they could do on the field, but on who they were in the locker room and how they represented the organization. Monken made those standards clear immediately, and the Gabriel situation became the first major example of what those standards actually look like in practice. Dillon Gabriel's time in Cleveland was not a complete failure, and it would be inaccurate to describe it that way. There were drives, individual performances, and stretches of play where the promise was visible. Fans in Cleveland had moments where they allowed themselves to believe that something real was developing at the quarterback position, which for Browns supporters has been a long time coming. But the consistency that separates a developmental quarterback from a franchise quarterback never locked in. One game would generate genuine optimism, and the next would raise the same questions that had been circulating since Gabriel arrived. The pattern repeated itself across his tenure, a promising start that never converted into the kind of decisive separation that coaches need to see before committing resources and system design to a player. When pressure situations arrived in critical moments, Gabriel's performances raised more concerns than they resolved. The coaching staff watched the tape, tracked the reads, measured the decision-making under duress, and could not arrive at a conclusion that justified building around what they were seeing. That reality, documented in the film room over multiple weeks, formed the foundation of the decision Monken eventually delivered face-to-face. But the on-field evaluation was only one part of the picture. The off-field situation surrounding Dillon Gabriel added a layer of complication that made an already difficult decision significantly easier. Reports surfaced that Gabriel had referred to Shedeur Sanders as an entertainer rather than a competitor, a characterization that does not reflect well in any professional locker room, but particularly inside one where a new coaching staff is actively constructing a culture around accountability and mutual respect. In professional football, how players talk about their competition matters. Coaches hear everything. Teammates register everything. When a player responds to losing ground in a competition by minimizing the person ahead of him, it communicates something specific about his mindset, and what it communicates is not attractive to a staff trying to build something sustainable. The situation was then compounded by reports involving Gabriel's fiancée, whose social media activity included disrespectful comments directed at Shedeur Sanders. Those comments became public, and Gabriel responded with silence. No effort to address the situation. No public separation from the comments. No attempt to redirect the narrative back toward football. Inside a facility where Todd Monken is building new cultural standards from the ground up, that silence registered as loudly as the original comments. Leadership is not evaluated only in the moments when things are going well. It is evaluated most clearly in the moments that require a player to step forward and demonstrate professionalism when it would be easier not to. Gabriel did not step forward, and the coaching staff took note. While the Gabriel situation was deteriorating across multiple fronts, Shedeur Sanders was doing the exact opposite. He was stacking performances, commanding the offense with increasing authority, and proving through repetition that high-pressure moments do not disrupt his composure or his decision-making. What Monken observed in Sanders went beyond statistics and completion percentages. It was the profile of a quarterback who understands how to control a game without forcing outcomes. When plays broke down around him, he found answers. When coverage took away his first read, he moved through progressions correctly and efficiently. When the moment was biggest, his performance level rose to match it rather than declining under the weight of expectation. That quality, the ability to elevate in critical situations, is exactly what separates quarterbacks who generate interest from quarterbacks who generate franchise commitments. The locker room response to Sanders added another dimension to the evaluation. Teammates responded to him differently than they responded to other quarterbacks in the room. There is a calmness that Shedeur Sanders carries in professional settings that is immediately recognizable to experienced players and coaches, a settled confidence that does not require external validation and does not generate unnecessary noise. That quality cannot be installed through coaching. A player either possesses it or he doesn't. Monken identified it in Sanders, and it became a central factor in the direction the organization chose to move. The public confirmation of that direction came when Todd Monken stepped in front of a press conference and called Shedeur Sanders an elite playmaker. In the context of an NFL head coach's press conference, that language is significant. First-year head coaches are not careless with their public statements. They understand that every word reaches the locker room, travels through the league, and shapes the narrative around their team. When Monken used that specific phrasing about Sanders, he was not making casual conversation. He was making a declaration of belief, and every person inside and outside that building understood what it meant. The Browns have found their quarterback. The building knows it. The league knows it. Contrast that moment with what happened at Monken's first press conference in Cleveland. Dillon Gabriel's name was not mentioned once. Not a single reference. That absence was not an oversight or a scheduling coincidence. It was a deliberate signal about where the organization's attention was focused and where it was not. Monken chose his words at that press conference with the same intentionality he brings to every other aspect of his program, and the contrast between what he said publicly about Sanders and what he did not say about Gabriel communicated the organizational position as clearly as any formal announcement could have. The implications of this decision extend far beyond the individual quarterback competition. Todd Monken is doing something with this move that Cleveland Browns football has needed for years. He is establishing an organizational identity built on performance and professionalism simultaneously. Talent is the entry point, but accountability is the standard that keeps a player in the room. Difficult decisions do not get avoided because they are uncomfortable. They get made because the organization is committed to moving forward rather than standing still. For a Browns fanbase that has watched the quarterback position cycle through instability for the better part of 2 decades, that shift in organizational posture is significant. It signals that the people running this football operation are not guessing or hoping. They are committing, and they are communicating that commitment clearly and consistently. The culture Monken is building in Cleveland starts with how decisions like this one are handled. When a head coach is willing to sit down with a player face-to-face, deliver an honest and difficult message, and then follow that message with public statements that reinforce the direction the team is moving, it creates clarity throughout the entire roster. Players understand what is expected. They understand that performance and professionalism are evaluated simultaneously, and that falling short in either area carries real consequences. That kind of organizational clarity is what winning football programs are built on, and Monken is establishing it in Cleveland from the very beginning of his tenure. With the direction set, the Browns are expected to begin exploring trade options for Dillon Gabriel. The most frequently discussed return value involves either wide receiver depth to strengthen the offensive weapons available for the new quarterback, or a developmental quarterback who fits the system Monken is installing with greater precision. Trade conversations at this stage of the offseason involve careful evaluation of market interest and realistic return value, and the Browns front office has made it clear that the goal is not simply to move Gabriel, it is to move him in a way that strengthens the roster in a specific direction. Nothing about this process is being rushed carelessly. The decision has been made, the direction is clear, and the organization is now working through the next steps methodically. Building the offense around Shedeur Sanders means designing a system that maximizes what he does best, processing information quickly, delivering accurate throws in rhythm, managing games efficiently, and performing in critical moments without the mechanics of his decision-making deteriorating under pressure. That means adding weapons around him, constructing a line that gives him time to operate, and creating a practice environment where he can develop without unnecessary distractions pulling focus away from the work. The runway is cleared. The structure is in place. Now the development process begins with full organizational commitment behind it. For Dillon Gabriel, this chapter closes with a redirection rather than a conclusion. His professional career is not over. The NFL has a long history of quarterbacks who found the right fit after leaving a situation that simply was not the correct match for their skill set or their stage of development. How Gabriel responds to this experience will determine a great deal about what comes next for him. The ability to absorb a difficult moment, evaluate it honestly, and carry the right mindset into the next opportunity is what separates players who recover from setbacks from players who are defined by them. His talent is documented. His opportunity exists somewhere in this league. The question is entirely about the response. Now it is your turn to weigh in on everything that just happened in Cleveland. Monken made a bold, direct decision in the first weeks of his tenure. Did he get it right, or did the Browns move too quickly on Gabriel before the full picture was visible? Is Shedeur Sanders genuinely the franchise quarterback that Cleveland has been searching for through years of instability at the position, or is the confidence being placed in him a risk that could define this regime negatively? And how much weight should off-field situations carry in decisions like this one? Does professionalism and locker room culture deserve the same evaluation as on-field performance, or should the judgment begin and end with what a player does between the lines? These questions deserve real debate, and this comment section is the place to have it. If you believe Todd Monken is constructing something genuine and sustainable in Cleveland, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this Brown story is developing fast, and you do not want to be the last one to know what happens next.